Today we're having a look at the 2024 World Cup Mixed Open Gold Medal match.
Oh, how about that? It's even better.
Count of the man, count of the hour.
That is sensational.
Okay, so once again we have another gold medal match, and once again it is Australia versus New Zealand. So New Zealand tapping off, running right to left, and Australia will be defending straight up. So let's have a look and see what New Zealand do off the tap off. I did watch this. I was sitting in the stand live in this game, and it was probably the game of the day, to be honest, as far as score goes. Oh, well, there you go. We don't have the tap off, but let's see Australia's set of possession here. Nice and simple. So there's their first try. As you can check out the crowd. There was nowhere where if you got to the ground late during this game, you wouldn't be able to find somewhere that you could sit down and watch. You would have had to stand up, and would have been not a very nice view. But first try here. Okay, you can see they've just probably rucked onto the field, and we have the two middles. Not an ideal situation. You want to be further down the field than this, but anytime you sort of buried up here, this is the 10-meter line here, you really want, your best bet is to try and run through the defense, just beat them for speed, because they can man on very easy because of the amount of space they have. But what happens here? They go to policy. He'll take off short side. It was a middle, so he stepped infield. And it's very important, when you do middle, you got to step infield. You're basically taking the position of the middle you're dumping for, thus allowing them to target the offside player, which is what he does. Takes him short, steps him in. Now, when I say in defense, normally, because there's this much space behind you, that's probably 15 meters. This player here can probably backpedal or just get out of the way and just roll backwards, allowing this toucher to then recover. Especially if it's dummy half. If it's dummy half, they can get through, they can make a half break and get close to the line that they can't score. So there's no real threat there. So in my opinion, that far out from the line, we don't have to shut down, especially if it's dummy half. But what they do is they do hold and shut. However, the link sort of stays out a little bit, and it just allows that gap to come through. So it's a simple middle. Now you're looking at the two of the best teams in the world in mixed open. And the first try in a gold medal match comes down to a middle, which is something that every single mixed open team would have ran plenty. This is where we don't stress about how, yes, you might be an elite team or you might be watching an elite game, but some of the most elite moves are the ones that we do all the time, and they're very simple. Like this one here, sweeper. And it's another short hole. So whether or not this was something that the coaches identified before the game, they might have seen video footage of New Zealand playing earlier. But we have a brave middle coming up. A little bit backwards to what we talk about with our normal eye defense. It is not backwards at all. It is, that's a girl there. And the boy middle next to the girl link is going up nice and tough to make sure that the girl is on the short side. But we have a sweeper. Oh, that was fast forward. So notice how he gets on the inside shoulder to split this way and straighten up, allowing the sweeper to come around and sweep into the offside player, and the dummy half will realign and just hit the next hole over. Okay, so you can see the sweeper is pulling a big corner, and then this guy is probably a little bit too far out. He has to come in, and because his spacing is a little bit too wide, the spacing here is fine. And it's very hard for this link to know that the other middle's too wide. So he'll step forward and do what he normally does, but when this middle here goes further in, that extends this gap. Okay, so that comes down to where the so you can see him start racing in now, leaving this guy's reaction a little bit later, and it just does really just open that hole up. So that's all about spacing. When we talk about spacing, is getting that right. If you can get that right at the play the ball, and you can move forward rather than lateral here. If they're here and here, they don't score. Australia don't score unless they rip a big long pass, which is a lot harder. Even the best players in the world, they'd still agree that it's the hardest option. But yeah, it's just a simple short hole on a sweeper. So two tries in a World Cup gold medal opens game and two very, very simple plays. Again, we're going for the sweeper. They don't make the touch. I will go back to that in a second. And this is just good recycling. Now I say whenever I coach teams, if we set up for a sweeper like this, now it's different with this. This is opens and this is a gold. Like this is the best teams in the world. But let's say this is just your, I don't know, state team or park team or whatever it is, and you're doing a sweeper, which means it's going to this middle because this is the guy that's going to come up. So there's your middle. He's going to get his inside shoulder with a sweep around. We've seen plenty of sweepers, but the last thing you want to do is going to make that touch and not, like, it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to make that dump. You don't want to be doing that because now we've swept and now we're all backwards in the wrong positions. Okay, and it's not ideal. If they're there to make the touch, we really want you to be making the touch. Now, normally, a team that's not as advanced in probably knowing how each other play, that would completely destroy this touch. We'd waste a touch, and it just wouldn't be good. But what these guys are probably trained for, and they've probably trained a lot, and Peter Walters is their coach, and he's one of the best brains around. They go into another sweeper, but it's a Cindy. It's the middle now, who was the sweeper. Now he's going to sweep back to the short side. You can see it, and it's the exact same setup. However, now we're dumping on the link, getting the inside shoulder, and we sweep around into that into that 2-on-1, hopefully. There we go. We're playing that offside player. Now he's still offside. He's got to make it all the way back. And he's not quite onside when he makes that dive. But again, the most important part out of a sweeper is if you're setting up for a sweeper, just make sure you make that touch because it's very hard to recycle, even though they made it look easy there. But we always want to be attacking that offside player. Let's see what happens here because when I was trimming this, I had to avoid replays, and this might have been directly off the tap-off. So we're going in to make the touch on the middle. Okay, so we have a sweeper here. It looks like we've got another sweeper. So we've got our link sweeping here, and he wants to get the inside shoulder of this middle, the middle that's closer to the camera. The reason being is when we sweep around, we want to be attacking that middle. But in this case, they go towards the other middle. Sorry, that was fast forward again. They go to the other middle. Now, this may have been intentional. And the reason I say that is because I believe that middle wouldn't have been too hard to make a dump on. But he's gone to the wrong middle. What do you do here? Okay, so all this happens here. We've got our sweeper around. And now this becomes a 4-on-3 platform. So it's like a middle's just faded for a link. The sweeper now becomes the middle hitting the hole. The link now realigns to hit a hole, and the dummy half can take off. There's the dummy half taking off, and now we've just realigned from a sweeper. Link's going through there. Middle's going through there. Link's going through there, and wing is holding the width. All right, and then you just pick the right option. It's a great catch. He's done the little sinker pass, the one that goes high, but it doesn't really have a lot of power on it. But yeah, so sweeper on the wrong middle is you just run. Another sweeper and another dive. We don't really have to go too far into this one. And this is good because a lot of people, and it really bothers me how, and it used to happen 20 years ago, they drift this way, they dummy to their link, turn around, throw it, and then have a sweeper. It's just all this unnecessary movement. And I really like it how he just gets the ball. It's simple. You just throw it to him. He waits until the defense is where he wants him. Okay? And then he makes that dump right on the 7. All he had to do was wait 8 meters out. And as a defender, you have no choice. You have to make that touch on the 7. And then they just do that sweep. And there's the dive. It's nice and simple. But we look at the spacing again. Here's good. Here's probably a little bit too loose. All right. And if this middle had have reacted promptly, this guy probably doesn't react as quick. And again, that opens up this lane here for the short line. But a nice effective dive. Check out my video about the importance of diving. It'll basically double your tries in a game if you get diving right. So we've got a middle. Questionable whether it's touch pass. He might have been offside. I'm not sure. I'm not going to get into that. But Australia caught with both middles up, which baseline defence is a big no-no. The only thing that's going for Australia at the moment is whereabouts on the field they're doing that. So they probably can, if they can get out of the touch quickly, man on and have that covered, because they've got all the space behind them to use when they're backpedaling. But he gets the middle. Well, he gets both of them. So right now, it doesn't even matter which way he splits, because the dummy half's going to pick up and go straight into an offside player anyway. So that's a good result. But he splits away from the camera. And you can see both these guys here, because they've made a touch, they think, okay, I pull corner, I'm the short side. But really, you only want one person pulling corner while the other one's tucking in nice and tight. Or if you're back there and man on, you could probably square yourself up. But they're both shaping like there's a corner, which inevitably opens up a gap in the middle. Now, I reckon he's probably being called offside by the referee, because it does look like a touch pass. But he goes for the short pass again. And they just get in behind the link and they score. That's just why you don't want to get two players caught in that. This is a shame. Well, it's not a shame. It's an outstanding left foot step. But the reason I use that phrase is New Zealand would have just defended a set on the line really well. And because it's fifth touch, everyone's like, all right, let's just man up here. We'll get the ball back and we'll sub off. We've earned a rest. And out of nowhere, that happens. And you'd be surprised actually how many tries come from just having a little crack at the line like this. Now, there's often a common debate whether on the fifth touch you want to be trying something like this, drifting wide, and then having the other guy outside you late switch or late cut. That's an option you can have. Or some people say, no, don't try and score. Kill the ball, which would be out here. So New Zealand have a really tough time trying to sub off and play the long game. Me personally, if you are confident that you want to have a crack, I will never say no to that on the fifth, as long as you don't throw an intercept and you defend and you get back on side and defend. That's all I want. We don't need an intercept and them getting a quick turnover. But yeah, nice left foot step. And probably the one thing I will say as a defender here, you can notice how far he's got off the line. Like, he's probably a good 5 meters off the line there. You probably only need to take 2 meters. As long as it cuts out the dive at your feet, I think you've gone a little bit too far here. But to be honest, who's expecting a step like that on day 7 of a World Cup? The ice bath's got a massive workout in this tournament, I'll tell you now. So we got New Zealand. Guess what? It's another sweep. Okay, and we look at sequencing here. And I do have a video coming out about sequencing. I actually thought it would have been out by now, but I've stalled it back a little bit. But sequencing, so you've noticed we've ran sweepers all the time. And now, again, Australia's caught. This might be a plan. I don't know the specifics on how they've been taught to defend, but it always can get you in a bit of trouble if you've got 2 middles right up there making the touch. And because there's normally a sweeper, you can see the body position here from these two guys we need to protect that short side. We've just had a short ball and a dive scored on us, 2 dives scored on us with sweepers. So we need to be covering those gaps. And what do? He splits hard and he gets the ball back. So it was actually a middle sweep. So it's actually a middle sweep here. So that's middle, middle. And that's the link, if you're wondering why it ended up with numbers. And because that's dumped on the middle, this is dummy half. This is actually dummy half's play. The sweeper is actually sweeping into a girl out here. And in mix, like that's actually a really good play, is to send a sweeper to the girl's side, and that's naturally going to make the boys cautious on defending and protecting her. And by doing that, it does cause them to overchase. Now, this player here, it's his responsibility to chase the ball player, or if this link gets a good read on it, he can rush in and snipe, because this actually ends up like a bit of a reverse quickie play, because they are now the two middles. So if you ever see that middle sweep coming as a link, if they're sweeping away from you, you can have that option of sniping. If you can get there fast enough, you'll probably make the touch. But you can see you just can't quite get there in time because of all the momentum going one way, and then they've hit him the other way. So 5-4 to New Zealand. I remember when we were watching this, we were actually thinking that New Zealand, like we were thinking that the guys that I was sitting around were thinking New Zealand were actually the better team. At this stage, we were like, okay, New Zealand is starting to score what looks to be easy tries. We don't know how Australia can hang on. And then Australia did this nice little play. Now, it's a bit of it's a new play. It's not really a new play, but it's a play that's not as common as what you normally see. Now, the shape here is exactly the same as what we saw before. Okay, so middle link, and it's going to be a middle sweep. So there's the shape. But instead of the sweeper coming around the back here, it ends up like a splitter. So now he comes through the middle, and now he's live. Dummy half then just backs off this way. He's live attacking the defender now. He still splits hard. So it's kind of like a Cindy with the dummy half running crossed with an ML line. It's interesting. I don't know if it has a name for it. I just call it, we just call it a second option from a Cindy or a middle sweeper or an outlaw, or however you want to call it. But yeah, he comes up the middle, and it allows him to ball play here. And what he does is he rips it straight off the deck. Excuse me. So it ends up like, it ends up like a quarterback. So he gets it, rips it here. This guy's chasing in to cover that gap, but as soon as that ball is ripped to the dumper, who's running the opposite way, he's got to turn and chase around, and a lot of times it's just way too hard. But what they do here is, instead of running all the way to the line, they might notice that the wingers are in heaps far, because theoretically that is the open side. They can be a little bit far in, and they just go long. So if you do know a name for that play, let us know in the comments, because it's a tough one to run, but it does look good. Again, here's your middle sweep. Very nice. And that's just another variation. Really liking these sweepers. Okay, so you see this touch is made on, well, I think it's made on the middle. Maybe not. Maybe that was the link. Either way, you make it on the link here. He's got to pull a hard corner, because if this number 11 gets the ball, he's going to try and burn him on the outside and just dive at the line, which he's done before. You saw the second try from New Zealand was like, I think it was the second try. So yes, because he's got to pull a hard corner, this guy has to come in tight. Now, I know it's man on with the dummy half picking up, but until the dummy half picks it up, he assumes the sweeper's going to get the ball. So you can see the momentum's taking him away from the camera, and then he picks up the ball from dummy half, and he takes off open, which means this middle's got to step up, and it's basically a 4-on-3 as well. But working off the ball here is some good work from both these players. So as soon as he takes off this way, the sweeper curls around and becomes a trail runner, because this guy will try and turn, and if they do man up, your curl could beat this defender here. However, he's obviously watched my skateboarding video, the skateboarding defense, and he's made, press fast forward again, and he's flipped his hips around as soon as they curled in, like that. But the long ball was open. And there's a try. New Zealand are up. Not the best camera angle for analysis, but again, another sweeper. Now, this is just a video. It's a sweepathon. So he drifts here, makes it look like he's going down. Now, this is all pre-planned. Looks like he's going to dump the ball. Gets this guy to the 7 and then dishes back to the other middle with the guy pretending to be dummy half. Now he is the ball player. All right, now he comes sweeping around. And this guy's got to pull a corner. But what he does is he does that little jink. See how he squares himself up and then he kicks away? Now, I've got a video out, what's the difference between a good and a great sweeper, and that's that line. It's you come around, straighten up, and then you kick away. And that gets this link interested as soon as you straighten up, but when you kick away, all of a sudden now you've got numbers if they are tight. If they are not tight, you can just score the try. But check out that video, just called "What's the difference?" or "What make difference between a good and a great sweeper," or a good versus great sweeper. But that's that nice little movement there, and it's really nice quick hands too from the ladies to finish that off. 6-all here. So we have about 10 minutes to go in this game, and we've got a new play, punish. I really like this play. So it's a punish. Now, obviously I only have the highlights on this, but let's just say a normal punish would be splitting to the short side and then taking on this vulnerable link and trying to dive at his feet. That's a punish. It's just like a quickie on the link towards the link. But what happens here? Let's just say we've run that a few times and now all the cover defense is just an immediate shut. The number 8 here, dummies, well, I don't know whether he dummies, actually, I didn't see it, but normally you would just do a quick dummy, pivot, and throw an out ball to this number 15. Basically just countering against the grain. There's the pivot, there's the out ball. Now, unfortunately, the out ball didn't really work because this is how far the defenders are. Normally they'd be nice and tight covering that dive. Maybe they didn't try any punishes earlier, and that's the importance of conditioning the defense or sequencing. But lucky for New Zealand now, this is a guy with a really good right step, and this gap here between the two defenders is quite large. So he's going to come screaming over to shut that down and fill that gap. But that leaves the link very vulnerable because he had to pull corner because that was the threat. Now he has to flip his hips and chase as well. And it's very difficult to be able to do that at such pace. So it's just that out ball. They noticed that it was manned on really well, so then they step back. Normally, you'd never want to step back. Normally, that's just to take them on. Okay, but normally, again, there would be a defender there and you'd have a lot more space and a lot more of a head start to try and get around them. Nice try. New Zealand go up by 1 with 10 to go. And I think everyone was starting to call out for drop-off now around where I was sitting. Another middle sweep. It's the same play. Again, we talk about sequencing. This is just perfect for the game analysis. But we have that play again where he cuts through the middle. And you notice the last time they did it, they ripped here and then they went long. And you can see now both these defenders remember that play, as they so should, and they've squared their hips to try and man on now. But you can see the vulnerable part of now when you plant your feet is you can get beaten one-on-one. That's when your side steps come really helpful, or they come in handy, however you want to say it. And so what they do is they do that. They square themselves up and then they snap back this way. And that causes this. Soon as you try while you're running backwards to man on, like while you're running backwards, it's very hard to move laterally. So as soon as they square their hips, you just, whatever your way you're running, you step the other way. And now you just have the numbers on the short side. And that's just overthinking, really, from New Zealand. They've just been scored on the open side with the same play. So naturally, I know it's very easy to say off the field that they'll never run the same play twice. They'll never do the same play twice or anything like that. But while you're on the field, it's actually really difficult. So I don't think what they did was that worthy of a mess up there. So, but anyway, so it came to 7-7 and we went to a drop off. Edge of your seat stuff, mixed open, World Cup gold medal drop off. So we have 2 minutes. So I've got the whole drop off here. We're going to go through the whole drop off. So 2 minutes to start, and Australia didn't get to tap off, so they started the drop off as a tap off. So we're going to talk about some good plays to do in a drop off. Half the time tries will come just like this. So let's have a look and just see what happened here. All right, so whether or not you want to play structure, or if you just have a really, really fast player like this guy, you do what he did. You drift. So his line's probably here and the other middles is here. Drift as far away from that as possible infield to give you as much space out here where you can take on your own man. And then all it is you get nice and tight and you just skip away. Try to get him flat-footed like that, because you've got the advantage of knowing when you're going to start your run. It's like knowing when the gun's going to go off at a race, and they don't. So you cat the jump on them there, and the link was nice and tight, and you just picked the right time to pass the ball. Now, it's not the most structured thing. A problem occurred while trying to save. Okay, that's not us. Moving on. Okay, so he just picked the right time to pass. And a lot of times you can try and play super structured with your drop off, or you can just get tries like that. They're both worth the same point. Purists will say, no, you want to play proper touch football, but a point's a point. And let's talk about how New Zealand respond, and then we'll talk about what structured plays, in my opinion, work best in a drop off. And my thoughts on what New Zealand do. But I just want to point out, and then they just tried to do the same thing as Australia. I do want to point out that New Zealand, right before the end of the game, they ran a play, and one of their players, I think, did his anterior cruciate ligament in his knee. And to my knowledge, he would be one of the main go-to players in a drop-off. So they did have to sort of make it up on the go as who they were going to be relying on in the drop-off. But let's have a look at their play. It was super unfortunate for that player. So they go the reverse quickie, which is definitely not a bad option. And they go a quickie, but a takeoff. Now, the good news here, I guess there's good and not so good news. Let's have a look at the reverse quickie. So they've done this running. Now, what I would do is I would have taken a little bit of time and made sure that this was on the 7. And I would try to get both of those middles up the best as I could. And then I would try the reverse quickie. And I would take off as hard as I could this way. But by messing around and trying to get these middles up, the other two players have to come up as well. And when they come up, they're likely going to come in. So when he gets the ball off the deck, he should have a free link in front of him. But anything that's going to make them turn and chase is what you want, especially being a live player. You're not dummy half, is what you want in a drop-off. Again, that's not probably my go-to play, but that is a good play to do. This one, not so much. Now, you're bound to get over from dummy half here. So what happens is he just does a quickie shape. So he splits short side and he dummies that pass, knowing that other back middle is heading to the spot to cover the dive, especially in a drop-off. Like, you really don't want to let a dive in the drop-off, and he dummies that, and he takes off this way. Now, 9 times out of 10, you will get over from dummy half here, which is what happens. But when you get over from dummy half in a drop-off, you only have 3 players to look for, and they've only got 3 players to man onto. Well, it's 3 players. So it's actually probably, in my opinion, a little bit more of an advantage for the defending side, because they just man up like that. Now, in my opinion, the plays that you want to go for are, if you do a rooster, you do it with a quick release. You can do an out ball. You can do that Cindy with the rip off the deck play. They could have even tried to run that splitter play. Anything where you're a live player, and then those quick releases, because you've got so much space on the edges, those quick release plays would be definitely the best thing, in my opinion, to do. So I think Australia get the ball here, and it's just all about holding the footy. There's the only way they're going to lose this now is if they make an error. And as far as I know, this is what the game gets taken out. But I do reiterate that it's a massive, massive shame for the young New Zealand player who was he had an outstanding game, and as they say, the touch footy gods weren't with him when he tried to step back in, I think, on an out ball, and he hurt his knee. So if only we realised what would have happened if he stood on his feet and he was able to take part in a drop-off. But we'll never know, and congratulations goes to the Aussies for getting up in what was a really exciting game. And I'm so glad that the finals, the gold medal matches, were as exciting as what they were. It's just so good for the sport. Sad day for New Zealand, but I'm sure it won't be too long before they get their own gold medals as well. But thanks very much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to click subscribe, become a member. Any support really helps the channel and me making more videos. But until next time, we'll see you on the next video for Touchscreen.